What's up, everybody? Welcome once again to Titletown South Florida, the Miami Herald's high school sports show. I'm Andre Fernandez, Deputy Sports Editor at the Miami Herald, back for another show with my wingmen here, sports writers David Wilson, Jordan McPherson. Guys, we are in the cluster. We're not going to say the other word, but the cluster of a month that February always is, where all the sports seem to interconnect from the fall, winter, spring. And then, of course, there's those other sports you guys cover, like the pro sports, the big boys. Like you both are coming off the NHL All-Star Weekend, which was a rarity for South Florida. How was that? How was covering some February hockey down here, especially All-Star hockey? All the stars here in town.
It was fun. I mean, the All-Stars definitely all liked it. They were happy. They're all coming. How many teams are in Canada in the NHL? What do we got? Like 8. They were all happy to get down here for a couple days.
Yeah, no, it was fun. Again, first time for South Florida to have the All-Star game since I think it was 03.
Yeah, 20 years.
Yeah, 20 years. And it was a fun weekend. Again, had a bunch of stuff going on over Fort Lauderdale Beach. All the players seemed to enjoy it. We saw a lot of sunburns, a lot of tans going into those final couple days. Yeah, and the hockey was fun, especially the last day. And to see Matthew Tkachuk of the Panthers take MVP honors was a good perk on our end as well.
That's what happens. The snowbirds are burning in the sun this time of year, enjoying it, getting away from all that. Like you said, like all the Canadian frigid, the Arctic up there right now. And Matthew Tkachuk, how about that? I mean, he's on a tear right now. David wrote a nice feature on him. If you want to check that out on MiamiHerald.com, he's on a pretty good run right now. Let's see if the Panthers make the playoffs. But this is a high school sports show. So we're going to switch gears and talk a little bit. We're going to tell you what we have in store today. We're going to recap what was really an uneventful second signing day, but a few of the under-the-radar kids signed. We know Javin Simpkins finally made his decision and signed as well. We'll have a little bit on that. David talked to him after his ceremony. We'll also salute some of the top performances of the past week, like we always do with our players of the week, and look at some of those big wins, including the BCAA basketball championships last week. On the boys' side, Cardinal Gibbons, a nail-biter with South Plantation. We'll look at a couple of the big plays in that one and the tournament MVP from Cardinal Gibbons. We'll talk about that, as well as this is the week we're going to also salute the Fall All-County All-Stars, which we saw all of that has been revealed at MiamiHerald.com. If you missed any of that, all our All-County teams for the fall in football, volleyball, golf, swimming, cross-country, bowling, all those are there if you want to check them out. A lot of stories on the winners, but we're going to talk a little bit about who impressed us the most from that season and put a bow on the fall season, as now we're getting close to the winter playoffs. I also had a chance to go to our good friend Larry Bluestein's South Florida Combine this past weekend. Some pretty interesting talent out there for that are going to play big roles for their schools come football season. Kind of focused a little bit on some of the top quarterbacks that were there, so we'll have an interview on that. Remember, if you're watching this show, we're also on YouTube. You can check us out there, and then this show is available as a pod. So Spotify, iTunes, all the platforms, we're on there as well. If you happen to want to hear this show instead of watch it, maybe you're in your car or you're at work and you can only hear it, that's your ticket to do so. So let's start with that signing day that we talked about. David, you were there for Javin's big day. Talk a little bit about, what you see out there with him and obviously this is a kid that can make an impact at the next level, as we've said before.
Yeah, obviously, as you said, not a very eventful signing day. I think most of the decisions were kind of what we expected. Adam Moore at Northwestern picking SMU. Javin Simpkins was kind of the one little bit of drama. He was down to Coastal Carolina, Western Michigan, had a couple other hats on the table, but that was what I had heard going in was kind of the top two. And then goes with Coastal Carolina, which is I think I specifically thought about his fit there last week because it's a new coaching staff there. So it's kind of, they got to do a little bit of retooling there, but that's been one of the best G5 programs in America over the last couple of years. I think they were ranked in the top 25 at some point in each of the last 3 seasons. So for Simpkins, who is an Under Armour All-American, and you're seeing kind of right now more and more Under Armour All-American type guys are kind of getting squeezed out a little bit of Power 5 just because of the extra COVID year and some transfer portal stuff. Those guys can go to a slightly smaller school like Coastal Carolina and make a big impact early on. I would not be surprised. He's a little small, I guess would be kind of the knock on him. But he said at Coastal, they really like his versatility.
Yeah, and as we kind of figured too, Rhett Lashley picks up another good one from down here. You were at Northwestern. Tell us a little bit about Adam Moore of the Bulls heading to SMU.
Yeah, that was technically an announcement also, but I think everyone kind of had a hunch after he visited SMU right before signing day that was where he was going to wind up. He was the one of the top-ranked uncommitted guys in South Florida going into the weekend. A guy who, again, I guess the size would kind of be the knock on him as a guy who's going to play tight end, 6'2", not that prototype, but he's a guy that, all the kind of big schools monitor him, right? Like Miami obviously knew about him. He had a relationship with Rhett Lashley from when Lashley was at Miami. So that it's a guy he's kind of more of a weapon, I would say, than a tight end. A guy who maybe, can split out wide a lot. Obviously played a lot of receiver at Northwestern and at Booker T. Washington before. I think most people would say one of the best receivers down here. And obviously we produce a lot of good receivers down here in South Florida.
Yeah, and Jordan, you were speaking of wrapping up a great career. They didn't go to like the biggest name, the biggest school, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has a good career at Presbyterian. That's Colin Hurst of Western High, coming off that injury. Hopefully, he's ready to go next season. You covered Colin a ton during his high school career. So, what was that like for him to get there?
Yeah, it was an emotional ceremony last week. I mean, Colin Hurst, he said, if you asked him 2 months ago when the early signing period was going, if he'd have an offer in February, a decision in February, he didn't know. He got the offer from Presbyterian a month ago, did a visit early in January, and to be able to have a deal in place and have a place to sign for him was very emotional. He choked up when he was talking and doing his ceremony at Western. And the main thing is he's had a fantastic career, 80-some touchdowns. I believe it's about 85 touchdowns and 15 interceptions over his 4-year career. Basically was a starter 3 weeks into his high school career, but he's undersized. He was only 5'10", 160 pounds, had the knee injury very late in the season, right around playoff time, and he's still recovering from that. He's hopeful to be ready for his freshman season, so that's a positive note there. But to be able to get something done for him and for him to be able to know that he's going to be playing at the next level, which that's all he wanted. He didn't care what level it was. He just wanted a shot. And it looks like he's going to have that at Presbyterian.
Yeah, definitely glad he's going to get an opportunity. I mean, yeah, I think we saw the effect that the portal is having. I keep hearing it all the time from coaches at how much more difficult it's making to get opportunities. Maybe not for those 4 or 5-star guys, but for those more under the radar talents.
Yeah. I tend to think it's more about that extra COVID year, just guys getting 5, or I used to be able to get 5, but 6, 7, 8. What Miami's got a 9th year tight end, right? Like these extra seasons of eligibility. I hope and like to think that once that class is cycled through and we're back to 4 or 5 years, it'll open up more spots. Because obviously the transfers come in, but the transfers also go out, right? Some guys come up to the Power 5 level, but some guys also drop down a little bit. So we'll see. But yeah, for now, it's obviously frustrating for a lot of coaches. It's a common refrain, as Andre said, that you're hearing.
Well, David, you talked to Javen Simpkins after his ceremony. Here's a look at what he had to say.
So Coastal Carolina, obviously new coaching staff there. When did this come together? When did they start getting on you, and what kind of sold you on them?
Really, they started getting on me at the beginning of the year. Coach Trickett hit me up and was saying how interested they were in me, how he wanted me to be his running back, and we went from there by the beginning of January, and it took off from there. So I went on a visit. It felt like home. I like how they're going to utilize me in the game, and I made my choice.
Obviously, it's a new staff there, but that's been a really successul program over the last couple of years. Going up there, I'm sure you get a little bit of a sense of the culture of the program, the fan base, all that kind of stuff. What kind of is exciting about that aspect of it, the success they've had in the last few years?
Coming into a program that's already been winning, so I know I got to bring my A game to keep the culture going, to keep the winning going and stuff like that. And it's going to push me to be a better athlete and a better person.
What did they, when they started coming after you, what did they say they liked a lot about you?
Say that again?
What did they like about you when they started coming after you?
The fact that I could be used anywhere, being used at quarterback, kick return, punt return, running back, receiver, just how they're going to utilize me all over the field and put my best attributes at front, you know what I'm saying, showcase my abilities.
Before you went on that visit, before they started talking to you, like I said, it was obviously an old staff before. Had you talked with that staff at all? Had you thought about Coastal Carolina at any point in this process?
Nah, it was really the way the new staff came in and approached me, and they pushed for me very hard, and that's where I wanted to go.
What do you think of Myrtle Beach? What was it like up there?
It was like Miami.
When did you know this was going to be the decision? Was it on that visit basically, or was it something you?
It was literally, I made the decision Monday night. I made the decision. I talked it over with my parents, some coaches, and we all came to one agreement that it's the place for me, and I made the decision to commit.
Cool.
I don't know if Myrtle Beach is like Miami, but hey, I hope it does well up in Myrtle Beach. And Coastal Carolina, yeah, I mean, we've seen them in the last couple of years, how they've kind of become one of those G5 teams that have been pretty good. And obviously, the season they had a couple of years ago, almost running the table. But switching gears to that, let's talk a little bit about like I said before, I got the chance to go out to Bluestein's camp on Sunday. It was at Ives Estates Park. He was able to get probably a good 100 or so kids there. Looked at some of the quarterbacks there. I mean, two of them that really stood out to me were a little bit we saw last year of Jamal Hagens, the quarterback at Crop. He looks a lot sharper. He looks like his technique has improved. I mean, I saw him more of like a mobile dual threat guy, but he was throwing some balls downfield that seemed like some pretty good touch. Looks like the kid's getting some good instruction and developing at that position. And Crop, and their coach Tom Caporal, they made some noise, got to the second round last year. They've picked up a couple of kids here and there and bring back the core of what they had. They were still a very young team this year. So, Jamal might have a chance to maybe push them and maybe they get a little further. Obviously, it's a tough spot in Class 3A when Homestead is still intact. And Kamani Corbett was another one that was out there. He was backing up Joshua Townsend. Looks like will still be the case this year, but he's a guy who can play a little bit more than just that. And then another one was Cale Alexander at Miramar. Big, tall kid, 6'4", around 180 pounds. And again, he talked a little bit about just his development. And I think I think both of you might have seen him play. I know Jordan definitely did last year.
A couple times, yeah.
A couple of times. What'd you think of Cale? Because I know we talked a lot about the running game and Miramar's defense. This kid kind of didn't get a lot of the headlines, I guess you could say. But what do you think about him and the chances he has to maybe keep elevating Miramar next season?
Yeah, I like Cale. I mean, the main game that saw for me was their shutout win against Western. Again, Nate Henry was the focal point of their offense, their running back, but he was very mobile, just for his size. He was able to throw the deep ball, and he was able to basically make all the plays that Miramar needed him to make. And again, he was a junior last year, 24 touchdowns against 7 interceptions, 2,272 passing yards. And he also had a couple rushing touchdowns in there as well. He has the tools there, and I feel like he's going to continue growing in terms of he's going to be able to build out his frame. If he's able to do that and get a little more zip on the ball, he's going to have a chance to – I feel like he's going to have a chance to get some offers in the college front.
Yeah, and I think with that combination, quarterback play, I mean, to get to the level where you can truly be a state championship contender, it's just a requirement now. Hardly ever do you see a team that's just with a kid that's not that dominant, passing the football, just the way that the offenses are set up now around the high school ball. So it'll be interesting to see. Let's see if the Patriots can keep developing. They're also in that 3M. I keep calling it 3A old school, but 3M mix with Homestead and obviously St. Thomas, the defending champion, which is always loaded. So a tall order for them. Yeah, and Cale is going to be one of the ones that I'm really excited about this year. I got the chance to talk to him a little bit at the Combine. Here's what he had to say about what he's been doing this offseason as far as his development and what he's looking forward to for Miramar for 2023.
Definitely a state championship. We came up short. We played against Homestead. We lost in the third round. That was the first time we missed in the third round since, I believe, 2012, 2013, one of those years. But we could taste the state championship. We were just there, but we came up short. So that's our goal next year.
How's the roster looking now so far in the offseason?
I mean, we're losing a lot of seniors, but we had a lot of good underclassmen that started last year, so we'll be able to make a good run to the state championship again this year.
How do you feel you did? How much growth?
I mean, this is my first year starting, so I made some rookie mistakes in my first year starting. So I'm looking to come back and fix those mistakes and being able to, instead of throw the ball away, to be able to take off, get 5-7 yards, and then be able to come back the next play and get a first down. And definitely taking more shots, being more, not risky with the ball, but looking to hit it more tight windows, stuff like that, just to be an athlete, be a playmaker.
In terms of arm strength, anything like that you're looking to focus on these next few months before the season starts?
Definitely touch. I mean, I look to work on everything. I think I can always get better, but definitely touch. Just being able to float it over the DB into the hands, that's beautiful.
All right, we'll talk a little bit now about the players of the week. As we remind everybody to vote in those polls. They're free. They're not behind the paywall. Vote for your favorite players this week. Got some good candidates from the soccer world. Brooklyn Schifrin from Palmer Trinity, who had 5 goals and an assist to lead the Falcons to a district championship. Luka Zimanski at Mast. Now, Mast this week beat St. Brendan and Gulliver. Jordan and I last week, we did that soccer breakdown. We had those two as top 10 teams. Well, guess what? Mast said, to heck with that. We're taking both down, and now Mast is the team hosting in the regional round thanks to what he was able to do. 5 goals, including 4 against St. Brendan. They beat St. Brendan 6-3. I think we forgot to mention the Makos last week, Jordan.
Unfortunately, we did, and you know what? They took the slight and used it to their advantage. Kudos to them. Let's see what they're able to do in the playoffs. It's, again, heck of a district run for them.
Yeah, and another boys soccer team that's on the rise that we did mention was LaSalle. Santiago Sanchez had a hat trick to beat Westminster, including the game winner in overtime. That's, a tremendous accomplishment for them. But obviously now regionals is where it really counts. They could end up facing them in the regional semis. And then wrestling, 2 familiar names. Sawyer Bartelt keeps beating them, doesn't get taken down by anybody, wins a 3rd straight GMAC title. And Maya Bethel on the girls' side, another GMAC championship, and she picked up 3 quick pins. Now, going to Broward, this one we're going to take a look at a little more in depth. The boys basketball BCAA Big 8 came down to the wire between Gibbons and South Plantation. Samuel Ville made 2 of the big plays down the stretch with his teammate Ryan Grant. He was named the tournament MVP as Gibbons knocked off Boyd Anderson, Pines Charter, and the Paladins to get their first tournament title since 2014. But Amari Wallace, also from the Paladins, had a great tournament, 54 points in those games, 25 rebounds, as South Plantation actually had one of the biggest wins. Even though they didn't win the tournament, they beat St. Thomas in the second round, which was a huge win for them. They had never won a BCAA Big 8 game at all in their entire history. They were always one and done. They finally not only got 1 but 2 and got within 1 point. It was the closest finish ever in the history of the finals. Here's one of the 2 plays that they made. Here's the first one that gave Gibbons the lead with under 10 seconds left. And then the 2 of them switched over. One got the steal, and then the other one had the deflection, and then the other got the steal, and this is what iced it with as time expired. Gibbons has won 18 of their past 19 games, one of the hottest teams going into the playoffs right now. And here's Samuel Ville talking about the victory.
It was all my team. It was a team effort. We made a great stop. We got it. It's cool.
And on the last play, the other way around, then you get the steal there too to finish it. Talk about that.
Yeah. Coach in the timeout, he told everybody to go for the steal, but don't gamble. We got the steal. We won the game.
18-1 in the last 19 games. What does it say about this team?
We got a lot of heart on this team. We got a lot of heart playing the game. We get the job done.
Why are you a second half team? What is it about this team that responds after halftime every game?
We've been down all 3 games. We never lost hope. We just stay together. We keep it together as a team, and we just come out with a positive outcome.
What changed from the beginning of the year to now?
It's not about how you start the season. It's about how you finish. And we stuck with that, and we're here now.
You feel like at this point, with the playoffs coming up, you can play with anybody?
Yes, we got a lot of momentum right now. 3-0, 18-1 in the last 19 games. We're gonna have the postseason.
So Cardinal Gibbons, like we said before, I mean, this could be, they're in Class 4A, not the easiest class, but we talk about all these other contenders, but maybe they don't really have like one standout scorer. Nobody even broke 10 points in that game. It was a bunch of 9s and 8s on the score sheet, but you never know. Maybe this is a team that breaks through. They already have a win over Palmetto this season. I mean, the Chiefs could be making some noise.
Yeah, no, they're looking really good this year. Again, they beat Palmetto to open the year. They beat Pines Charter a couple times, and you're including at the start of the Big 8 tournament, and going for their second ever state title, first since 2015. They also had a state runner-up finish in 2011, and again, it's just another name to look at in the Broward County and the South Florida realm as we go into district for the boys, and then eventually getting into regional playoffs here.
Yeah, definitely. And beyond Gibbons, the other candidates we have for Broward Players of the Week here, another one in the basketball realm, Riley Weiss, familiar name to our Players of the Week, continues her great season with 30 points to lead them to a district championship. And then in soccer, Taylor Smith of University School had a goal and 2 assists to beat Pinecrest to win the district title for them. And in boys soccer, Alexander Jimenez made 14 saves, a little love for the goalies, had a shutout to beat Stoneman Douglas 2-0 and get the district championship there. So, again, the soccer playoffs in the regional rounds this week, girls basketball in the regional rounds this week. It's heating up. And then, of course, the boys are getting into district play on the boys basketball side as well. But now we're going to take a look back. We're going to salute the fall all-county winners. As we said before, they're all available on MiamiHerald.com. If you missed any of those, you missed any of the all-county teams or the players and coaches of the year. David, let's talk a little bit about the football winners. In particular, in Broward County, I know you had the chance to once again kind of catch up with our offensive player of the year for small schools for Broward. That was Mark Fletcher, running back of American Heritage. Before we get to that, here's David's interview with Mark.
All right, we're joined now by Mark Fletcher, our offensive player of the year for Broward County this year at the Miami Herald, star running back for American Heritage, soon to be star running back for the Miami Hurricanes. Mark, you're in off-season mode, I guess. You'll get to Miami in the summer. So I guess we'll start. What have you been up to? What is your off-season like now? You're done with high school football, getting ready for college.
Yeah.
What's the off-season like for you right now?
Well, unfortunately, I still got class, but I just do school, and right after school, I'll just come work out with my head coach, Coach Mike Smith. He's one of the best trainers, so he's been training me ever since 7th grade. So I've just been working with him, and we going at it.
Mm-hmm. So you've got that Miami shirt on. Are you pretty much wearing Miami gear every day at this point?
Oh yeah, every day. I gotta rep it.
Obviously, a bunch of guys and future teammates are there already as freshmen. Are you jealous of those guys? Are you talking to them a lot? What are they telling you about what those early days are like?
I'm a little jealous. They said they've been working hard. I'm just happy for them that they get to experience college life a little early. But, I'm off the hip as soon as I get to go there in the summer. But yeah, they just been telling me just keep doing what I've always been doing. That's just work hard and just stay focused, and I'm gonna be good.
So I mentioned you were one of our offensive players of the year, and you obviously had a lot of accomplishments in your time at American Heritage, state championship a couple of years back. I think you were first team all-county for us a whole bunch, obviously, All-American Bowl. What did it mean to be named one of the best guys in Broward County, which obviously is one of the best places in America for football?
Yeah, it's just a really humbling moment. Because there's a lot of guys out there who are great, and it's just to be at one of the top. It's just amazing, and I'm just blessed to be here. And I'm gonna keep on working.
I haven't talked to you since your All-American Bowl performance. You obviously had the long touchdown there. You made a lot of highlight reels from that. What was the reaction you got after that moment, that game? Obviously, it seemed like down here we all knew about you, but nationally, it obviously seemed like it got you a little bit of attention.
Yes, sir. So beginning of that week of practice, I always told them boys that's how I wanted to score. I wanted to just go deep, show people that I could catch the ball, make a highlight play. Because, everybody just see me as just some big running back who want to run people over, can't run past them, make a guy miss. And that's all I was just trying to do is prove that we just have fun. Wasn't really like doing it as just to seem cocky. I just wanted to show people what I could actually do, other than run people over. I was just out there having fun just to get that attention. It's just crazy that I said what I was going to do.
You mentioned working out with Coach Smith, Mike Smith, who's the coach there at American Heritage for a long time. He was the strength and conditioning coach there and also a running backs guy. Obviously, been working really closely with him, and he's developed a lot of good ones before you. After you signed, I talked to him about you, and he was saying there's always a process, right? Every year you're trying to add something new. And
exactly.
For you to go from a guy who was always one of the best guys in the area to your senior year, nearly 2,000 rushing yards. Obviously, a lot as a receiver too. You caught a lot of passes in the state championship game. What kind of work did you put in between your junior year and your senior year to take that next step? What changed most for you?
I'll say just really focusing on all the little things, just being more explosive. Man, I always wanted to maintain my weight. My weight would go up and down, but I was able to maintain my weight around 215, 220, and then, it's just better on the joints, So that's what a lot of college coaches were giving me tips. If I could find a way the most comfortable, and that's just going to be the best way that I could play it. And that just put in a big factor for me. And, just maintaining that weight, working on more explosive things, for a big back. And I always had the ability to catch. So when it all came together, it just it off my senior year the right way.
I mentioned that you were one of our offensive players of the year in Broward County. You were for the smaller schools. For the bigger schools, it was Chris Johnson, who's going to be one of your teammates in that backfield next year at Miami. Have you guys talked a lot about what it's going to be like? I mean, you guys are obviously, like you said, you're the bigger guy. He's a track star. How excited are you to get in that backfield with him?
Now I'm really excited because, me and him, we've been getting closer. We went to go hang out at a few places just around here. He's a cool person. I just can't wait to work with him. He humble just like me, and we just ready to go in there and work. Nothing more, nothing less.
And then one other guy who was one of our players of the year and is going to be your teammate is Ruben Bain. Obviously went against him in the state championship. How happy are you to be his teammate instead of going up against him?
Cannot be happier. That man, he's a unit. He's a monster. He gonna make his presence every time he's on the field. Doesn't matter where he plays at. And I'm just happy to be on his team.
Looking ahead to next year at American Heritage, this is our episode. We're talking about our all-county awards from this year. Obviously, there's going to be a whole bunch of American Heritage kids who are contending for probably this same award next year and down the road. Who are some of the young guys at that school that we should be getting excited about and thinking about, oh, maybe this will be his award in a year or two?
Oh, yeah, Byron Lewis, Malachi Tony. It's just so many names that's just coming up, upcoming greats. And, they just following the legacy. American Heritage, they're going to have great players coming at the top each and every year, and that's just the work that we just put in. And so there's really them two names, look out for them. They coming.
All right, Mark. Thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it. We'll talk to you later on, and good luck with everything this offseason and next year once you get to Miami.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you.
So I can't wait to see this kid in a Hurricanes uniform. I think we talked a ton about it, but David, how much has this kid been impressive, just the development from being a pretty good running back to now looking like one of the most dominant that they could have signed in this cycle?
Yeah, it's one thing we touched on a little bit there. Couldn't obviously get that into it in like a 5-minute video interview or whatever, but I wrote about it after he signed. Basically the idea that, first of all, Mike Smith, the head coach there now, who's also a running backs guy in particular and longtime strength and conditioning coach here at American Heritage, he talks about the process with running backs in particular and you're going to see it now with Byron Lewis, is a guy he mentioned who's going to be the next running back there, where as a freshman, maybe they're a situational guy, a short yardage guy, maybe a receiver. They find their one role. Then the next year, a lot of times they'll become the starter or kind of share the backfield. And then they come up and they play to their strengths. And then this year for Mark Fletcher, you saw always a great power running back. This year he was faster. He was a little lighter, which helped him. And as he mentioned, he went to the All-American Bowl last month, saying he wanted to score on a touchdown catch. He did that, show it was a different part of his skill set. And he's got the right personality too, right? It's like a cliche, and Mario Cristobal harps on a lot of like wanting to get the right kind of kids, the kids who want to be Hurricanes, the kids who want to keep improving. But Fletcher fits that bill, not just from talking to him, where he's just a good kid and a great personality and good sense of humor, all that kind of stuff. But you've seen it on the field, the way that he's gotten better year after year. No one ever thought he was like not great, but he took a real step, I think, this senior year, where he really looked like one of the best running backs in the country.
Yeah, and two of the other winners that are also going to UM that fit those qualities too that we talked about before. Ruben Bain. I mean, he looks like not just the monster that he could be on the field and up front, but as a locker room guy. I mean, he looks like a leadership from that point of view. He looks like he's going to be a valuable addition to that team. Yeah,
that was another one. Mark laughing when I asked him about Ruben Bain, how excited he was to have him as a teammate. I mean, 3 months out of our 8 Broward players of the year, 3 of them going to Miami is pretty good, considering there's quite a few juniors in there too. Chris Johnson, the other one from Dillard, the other running back. And he's going to make kind of a perfect complement for Mark Fletcher. Where Fletcher, as we said, he's complete, but his strength is still in his size and his strength. And then Chris is a smaller guy, but a track state champion and one of just straight up one of the best athletes in the country.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go next, was the versatility too. I mean, the kid can return kicks. Jordan, you saw him a bunch in high school too. I mean, just the way that he every time I was doing a Dillard game, immediately thought this is the most explosive player on the field. It didn't matter if they were playing Chaminade, St. Thomas, whoever. It was like you were waiting for him to do something the second he touched the ball.
Yeah, and then every time he does something, you think, okay, what is he going to do next?
Yeah,
and then it's just he always finds another element of his game. It seems like every time you see him, and it's like, oh, I haven't seen him do that before. Have I seen him do that before? What else can he do? And just you find different things with his game as he goes. And again, just the fact that he's still basically the tip of the iceberg for what his career is going to be. It's going to be fun to watch him at the college level. Same with Mark Fletcher. Got to watch him a lot this past season, covering 4 or 5 different American Heritage games, and each game it was like, okay, when is the big run coming? When's the big play coming? And then Ruben Bain was, okay, if there's a play when he's not in the backfield, it's a surprise. So to see all 3 of them and collectively going together and being able to see them all progress together is going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, and another kid I like just from those qualities too. I know he's not a Miami guy; he's going to FIU, but still down here, and that's Keon Jenkins. I mean, the way that he progressed from early on playing for Matter Academy to then becoming the starting quarterback, and then a versatile starting quarterback that dual threat guy made a lot of clutch plays this year with his legs. But I think his decision making also improved, and this kid willed that offense to a lot of victories this year, playing some big time opponents, obviously the way Central did. For a program like FIU that was completely at rock bottom before last season, I mean, I think that he could go in there, and I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the season he's the starter next year.
Yeah, he made pretty much every time you'd watch a game, he'd make one throw where you're just like, whoa, like that's not something he would have done. His first couple of years, you're playing at Miami Central, you're an underclassman, you get to be kind of a game manager, right? With the way that Central produces running backs and builds their defense. But he was the best guy, obviously, on that offense as a senior. It reminds me a little bit of Zion Turner, who went from St. Thomas Aquinas, won 3 state championships there as a starting quarterback, went to UConn, smaller program that was really at rock bottom, is their starter as a freshman, leads them to a bowl game right away. And they're different players. Zion is more of a runner, I think. Keon a little bit more of a thrower, but there was like that leadership intangible quality, which is, it's why quarterback is the hardest position to judge in recruiting, right? It's because you can have the great arm, you can have all the size, you can have all the speed, but the thing that matters most are decision making and leadership. And I think Keon certainly has the leadership aspect of it down.
Yeah. And speaking of versatility, a guy who really got better in that department was Edwin Joseph. I thought at Chaminade, and can't wait to see what Mike Norvell and that staff are going to be able to do with him up there, because where that team is right now, where a lot of the buzz is that this could be a top 10 Seminoles team going in the next season, he could jump right in. I mean, he probably, because they're a little more further along and that roster's a little deeper, maybe not right away as far as maybe a starting role, but I think you'll see him get dropped in there early on and maybe make a few plays and kind of start to get his feet wet in that system up there.
Yeah, maybe a little controversial to make him our defensive player of the year, considering he's also he's truly splitting his time between offense and defense. But the edge for him was just talking to Damian Jones, and obviously watching him, but talking to Damian Jones, and on this team that is loaded with 5-star receivers, a quarterback who will be a Power 5 quarterback, a running back who was our offensive player of the year last year. He said Edwin Jones their most valuable player, and just the fact that he played defense, and not obviously he played at a high level, but just the fact that he played defense, and the defense was a lot kind of the younger, less experienced side of the ball, was huge for this team. His willingness to go from being like the number 1 receiver to being a guy who, he's still, I think, top 600 receiving yards, but a guy whose real focus was shoring up that back end on defense for a team that was, for a long time, people thought maybe the best team in the country. That was just so valuable, I think, to that Chaminade team. I don't know if, they obviously would have been great without him, because that team is loaded, but I don't know if they would have been like in that class of their own that they were all year long without a guy like him to make that defense hum too.
Yeah. Other winners we had were, of course, King Mack at Penn State signee at St. Thomas Aquinas. Another kid who, just a lockdown the way he was on opposing receivers this past season. Had a great year, a big vital part of that Aquinas push this year. One of the greatest, in terms of depth, probably one of the deepest teams they've had. Maybe not so much the superstar talent like we talked about before, but just the wave after wave that they were able to hit you with this year, and it showed because Joshua Townsend, our offensive player of the year in Dade County, had a pretty decent game in that state final, and still just wasn't enough against them. But both kids. Looking at the future, too, if we switch to this Dade County category, Townsend has been able to keep it together at Homestead. As of now, we're in February, and instead of defections at Homestead, we're seeing guys come in to Homestead. So it looks like that core is staying together under Coach Ron Thornton. But Townsend had the big part to do with that. I mean, from day one, he said, I'm staying, and we're making another run at this. So, I can't wait to see what this kid could do as a senior. And then Dalen Russell at Columbus is another kid. He was our defensive player of the year. Your choice there. Tell us a little bit about that, David, and what impressed you about Dalen and on that side of the ball. I mean, obviously they're going to be loaded on that side of the ball.
Yeah, not like eye-popping stats, especially when you compare him to a guy like Ruben Bain, but as a versatile defensive player, mostly plays defensive tackle for a defensive line that's really good, has a bunch of Division I prospects on it. He was just kind of invaluable in every play, whether it was in the run game or obviously sacking the quarterback too. And honestly, the performance that kind of sold me. We went into that state weekend, we're thinking about who can be player of the year, who can maybe make their case. And Russell made a couple of the best defensive plays I've seen in that game. One on a screen pass where he ends up kind of like chasing a guy down from behind and forcing a fumble. And then a huge sack on 4th down late in that game that ends up, obviously Columbus wins a defensive struggle in overtime. I think it was like 13-13 or 10-10 when he got the sack. So you look for those moments, and in a race that was wide open, I think he did it on the biggest stage. And then another one, we're just talking to Dave Dunn. That's TJ Capers, their defensive end, is a 5-star recruit in the class of 2024, but he said Russell is their most valuable guy on defense.
And that defense next year, it's going to be interesting to see how much of a leap with him, TJ Capers, like you just said, adding Willis McGahee to that mix.
Yeah, Dylan Stevenson, another a junior coming back. So they've got a really good group.
They lose Amir Foster, so they might have to plug a spot or two in the secondary, but that's not a problem for Columbus, as we've known over the years. But going beyond football here, Jordan, you picked a lot of these other teams from other sports. On the swimming side, I know some of the dominant kids. Once again, Olivia Deinhardt at Cutler Bay, she continues her stellar career. I know the kids at South Florida Heat, Erica Pelaez, as another great career. Tell us a little bit about your swimming winners and just how they dominated once again this year in the pool.
Yeah, I'll start on the Broward side. South Florida Heat's Erica Pelaez and Kai Winkler, both juniors, both set a pair of state records at the state championship meet. Kai was double winner in the 100 free and the 200 free, and his 200 free record was he ended up breaking the record set by a little known guy named Caleb Dressel. So I feel like that's kind of a pretty big deal there. And then
a little known.
Yeah, little known. And then the 100 free it broke a record set by another little known guy named Ryan Murphy. So to be able to break both of those in the same year, that's pretty solid. And then Erica Pelaez, she won state titles and broke records in the 100 backstroke and 100 butterfly. And she also was part of a one of their relay teams that also won a state title. So, and they were our swimmers of the year in Broward last year as well. And I'm assuming if everything tracks the way it is right now, they'll probably be repeating it next year. And back in Dade, like you said, Olivia Deinhardt, she finished her career. She got one more state title in repeating in the 100 breaststroke. But in Dade, I want to give the big shout out to George Gonzalez over at Braddock. Sophomore this year, he won the 100 freestyle, was the leadoff swimmer for Braddock's title-winning 4x1 freestyle relay, and was really one of the integral parts of Braddock finishing as state runners-up in Class 4A after finishing in the 30s last year. And Gonzalez himself, he shaved more than 3 seconds off his time in the 100 freestyle from state in 2021 to state last year. And the 100 breaststroke, he shaved more than 4 seconds off his time to get a runner-up finish there as well. So 4 athletes who all really stepped up this year. Olivia Dinahart was the only senior of that group. So there's a really good core of top talent in the pool coming back next year as well.
Yeah, and Braddock had pretty much every swimmer you can think of. Like their whole team was pretty much on first team, and a lot of them are coming back. So to go from, like you said, from 33 to 2, it's a shame they didn't win the state title, but that might be in the cards coming up next year for sure. And for anybody who didn't know those names, you were name dropping a minute ago. I mean, I think the only bigger names you could have said there maybe would have been like Michael Phelps or guys like that.
Yeah,
they're just maybe a notch below that, but still, like we're talking Olympic level talent. So some pretty amazing feats there. Switching up, tell us about a little bit about the bowlers you picked for bowling players of the year, which obviously both had good seasons, and a couple of kids that are familiar to being first teamers.
Yeah, so in Dade, it was for the boys, it was Palmetto's Evan Vienner, and for the girls, it was Dr. Croft's Talia Nelson. Evan on the Palmetto side, during the individual portion of state, the way the bowling tournament works at state is everyone bowls 4 games as a qualifier. The top 16 individuals then advance to an elimination bracket. The top 16 teams then also advance to a bracket for individual and state title purposes. Evan was the top individual qualifier during that initial round, and included being one of the rare, I believe he was the 7th boys bowler in state history to bowl a 300 at state, and he was only the 2nd to ever do it from Miami-Dade County. Crop Sean Humphreys did it in 2006. His 4 games score in that state qualifying round was 1,009 pins over 4 games, which is an average of about 250. I've never bowled better than a 115, so I'm beyond impressed by what any of these people who made the state were able to do. And then Talia Nelson, she capped her junior season. She tied for 56th individually at state, the highest among all players in Dade. And she also won the Dade Youth Fair tournament and helped Crop win its 5th team district title in the past 6 years. And then on the Broward side, it was Cesar Medina from Taravella and Alyssa Metellus repeating from Archbishop McCarthy. For Medina, he helped Taravella make it back to state, win a district title for the first time in a while. And Taravella won BCAA for the second year. And I actually have to correct myself here. Team runner-up at district for Taravella, but they were the top finishing team in Broward at the state level. Same with Archbishop McCarthy with Metellus, who's only a sophomore. And both of them have been found a way to get some pretty good performances at the highest level for state bowling.
Yeah, another strong season for all of them. And then on the golf course, David, you picked these. We had some repeat winners there as well. Remy Bacardi doing it once again, dominating on her side, and then Nicholas Prieto of Florida Christian. Those are repeat winners, so it's pretty easy picks to put those 2 players of the year the way they dominated, I'm sure.
Yeah, and they followed it up deservingly. Also, obviously, Prieto, a senior, headed to Arizona State, so a Division I golfer there, and a guy who's been one of the top, like the golfers so often are. They kind of fill a lot of times they're first team all county type guys for years and years. Remy Bacardi still still got a couple years left, so it'll be interesting to see where she can go from here. She came back after last season and was looking to take just keep improving at state, so she'll be back next season and looking to come away with a medal next year. So like you said, relatively easy choices, but those when it's repeat guys, they gotta live up to it, and both of them did this year.
Yeah, the not involving our winners, but involving one of the dominant teams this year. The heartbreaker was the Columbus boys golf team, which because of the hurricane, suddenly the tournament format went from 2 days to 1, and the decision was made that same day. If they had an extra day, they felt maybe they could have finally won their first state title in 20 years, but it didn't happen. and and they graduated. The Explorers graduated everybody.
Yeah,
So
we should say like they didn't have the player of the year, but like every one of their golfers pretty much was first team All County.
Right.
I think it was 4 of the 5. Right? Yeah, 4
right.
out of 6, and like it would have been like you gotta. There were some other deserving guys, but all of those guys were deserving. They feel good about where they're going to be next year too. They had a kind of like a B team, JV team that was pretty solid. Obviously, Columbus always will get a couple of transfers. It's a private school. And one with that kind of reputation as a golf program. But yeah, it was like weird to not have a team like that have the player of the year, but they were very well represented, obviously, on our all-county team, deservedly so.
Well, the dominant counterpart in Broward is always American Heritage, and they did have both winners. Sohan Patel, on the still very young in his career on the boys' side, and then Catherine Schaefer as well, dominant once again. Tell us a little bit about the Patriots. They did it again on both sides. Both boys and the girls ended up winning another state championship. Yeah, boys finished second, girls won it. Catherine Schaefer has been like a fixture in that lineup for a couple of years. Always in that like top 2 or 3 golfers in the county. This was the year she kind of took the helm. Right, a couple other older players graduated and. It set her up as really the leader of that team as a junior. She'll be back again next year, trying to repeat both as an individual player of the year and with that team that will, like always, be the favorite or on the short list of favorites to win a state championship. For the boys, it was kind of similar to Columbus, right, where it's a whole bunch of golfers there that could have been the choice, but Sohan Patel, only an 8th grader, ultimately was their top guy. They finished second in the state in Class 2A. It was a lot of good choices from that team in particular. But Patel, it could be an 8th grader, like I said, it could be the start of a really, really good career here. And, golfers, we tend to see, like I mentioned, some young players kind of just like own the county for long stretches. Remy McCarty's, only a sophomore 3 times at states, kind of looks like it's happening with her on the girls' side in Dade County. And Patel could be setting up for a similar type of run up in Broward. Yeah, and Heritage definitely had a few of those over the years that dominate 5-6 years, and then they go pro and do, or they go to a great school or college. Yeah, exactly. And now to the athletes that I think put all of us to shame in the sense that I couldn't even run half of not even a quarter of the distance that they run, and on the courses that they do, and those are the cross country runners. Jordan, you picked that team once again. Tell us about those winners. We actually had a pretty interesting debate on who to pick for the boys in Dade this year. We ended up going with both of them because they were both deserving.
Yeah, so on the Dade boys side, Belen Jesuits, Josh Ruiz repeated. He was a co-runner of the year last year. And again, he was state runner-up in Class 3A, 15 minutes, 16 seconds to run a 5K, which just come on. And then we split the title with him with Ransom Everglades' David Serra, which was my guy who, when Andre and I were going back and forth with this, the fun fact about David Serra, this was his first year running cross country. He was part of the Ransom Everglades track team last year, set the school record in the 800. And then this year, he ran a 15:27 at state, which had him also state runner-up in Class 2A. Again, he was, between the two of them, both running sub 15:30s. It made sense to recognize both of them. Josh Ruiz, he's the table setter for a Belen team that has now won 6 consecutive team state championships, 14 overall state championships, both of which are Florida state records, by the way. So both of them were beyond deserving, and it would have been weird having one but not the other recognized. And on the girls' side in Dade, it was Emma Hancock from St. Brendan, who just got better and better every single year. She finished in 4th place this year, and then that was building off of it was a full minute faster than what she ran her freshman year. She was, I believe, first team all 4 years, if not all 4, at least the last 3. And she's still figuring out where she's going for college, but her hope is also to run for the under-20 team for Uruguay, which is her mom's home country. So those were 3 great people over in Dade. And then the Broward side, it's a couple of repeats here. American Heritage's Ashley Fitzgerald. She was state runner-up, barely missed out on winning the Class 3A state title for a second year in a row. This year, she was 2.3 seconds behind the state championship winner. She improved on her time from last year by more than 17 seconds, and she's a junior, so she's got one more year to try to crack and finally get that gold. And on the boys' side in Broward, it was Anthony Herrera and St. Thomas Aquinas, who I think second consecutive year we had an Aquinas person there, and he was the only person in Broward to crack 16 minutes at state, getting a time of 15:59.1, which had him finished 10th place in Class 3A, which was basically meant he was basically behind the majority of the Belen Jesuit team and a couple other guys, and then he was the next best person in that class. Because Class 3A Belen had, I think it was there's 6 guys, I think, all finishing either in the top 8 or the top 12, which is just unbelievable to think about. A team does that every single year as well.
We're just going to have the all Belen cross country team by itself.
That's basically what our teams have been the last few years. This year was, I think, the first time we had fewer than 4 guys from Belen Jesuit since I've been here in 2019.
Yeah, let's just have our own team, and then we'll do the all day of everybody else. We'll do it that way. But I know we're not supposed to root for anybody, but Ashley Fitzgerald, I'm quietly hoping she finally gets through, because I feel bad. She's been so close for the last couple of years, frustratingly close, and now that it doesn't come up with. I'm glad she gets one more crack at it. Maybe gets finishes her career up in Tallahassee next year on that the right spot on the medal stand on the podium there with the gold medal. But we'll see. To wrap this up, we're going to go to the volleyball courts now. I got the chance to pick this one. And on the Dade side, I mean, the most dominant team was Westminster, hands down. It's a shame. Speaking of a team that got frustratingly close and didn't get the job done, this is 4 years in a row that they've come up short in the state finals. But a tremendous year. They went 27-0 up until that last match against Clearwater Central Catholic. And Gabby Arroyo was the big reason for that. She was our small school player of the year. Her versatility, ever since she came over from Riviera Prep. I mean, this is a team, they had 5 players on first team. They have a little bit of everything. We talk about, the size up front on the attack, the setting, the defense. She could do a little bit of everything. And Coach Julie Don't even said it. She was the glue that kind of brought everything together for us and really put them over the top to make them as dominant as they were. On the large school side, a program that's starting to get closer and closer is Doral Academy. Lost a heartbreaker in the regional finals in 5 sets, but Isabella Molina is part of that core, big middle hitter, learning under Coach Julio Arnaz, whose background in coaching goes back all the way to his days playing at Southwest. And she continues to get better and better. She's really learned the position really from him, who he played middle hitter in his days on the volleyball court as well. So she had a tremendous year, and I think the Firebirds are getting closer to break through, maybe to that state Final Four like they did a couple of years ago, maybe even to the state finals next year. And on the Broward side, Zaire Barr was a big part of why St. Thomas Aquinas turned it around. I mean, we mentioned them earlier in the year, the way that they fell under 500, which is weird for them. A brutal schedule, though, is the reason why. They went down to I'm trying to remember the exact record now. I think it was like 9-13 before they turned it on, and then went on a big winning streak, got close, got to the state semifinals. She was a big reason why, and she will have a chance to continue to do that, for the Raiders. And Coral Springs Charter, Alexandra Bruno, not on one of the most dominant teams in Broward, a playoff team, lost in the first round, but stood out in spite of that. And sometimes that's the thing. You see some of these kids that maybe they're not surrounded by all the top talent, but are able to just really dominate and really hold their own and really elevate their squad when they're playing some of the best competition in Broward. And that's something that Alexandra was able to do. So that's why we went with her. So congratulations to her and all of our volleyball athletes and all of our fall all-county winners. We're going to do something like this again down the road for the winter sports, and again with the spring sports winners down the road. And then obviously we're going to reveal probably in June who wins our overall athletes of the year, coaches of the year, and that sort. So we'll do that, and we'll have them recognized on Titletown as well. But I don't know, guys, anybody that we left out, anybody that we'd want to talk about? I know we covered a lot of it, but again, I think another impressive fall season when you come to look at what the teams in Dade and Broward were able to do.
Yeah, no, it was a great year. Surprisingly low in terms of the total number of team state championships, which again, but then again, that's just because we're just so used to seeing the overall dominance. And when we only have a couple of non-football titles, we're like, wait, that's all we had this year. But
They
again,
also only let us win 4 state football titles this year.
Exactly. Yeah, there's also that as well. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, we will not stop saying that for as long as that's the case. And unfortunately, one more season of that. Hopefully, the state looks at it afterward. But even so, Dade and Broward got the sweep and maxed out at the 4 championships. But you're right. I mean, you look at Homestead and you look at Heritage, 2 teams that were deserving of state championships themselves. And you put them in a few other classes, and I'm sure they would have won. But we'll talk about more of that down the road. But we'll thank everybody for joining us once again on Titletown South Florida. We'll be back soon talking a little bit more about the winter sports as we get closer to the state championships. For David, for Jordan, I'm Andre. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you soon.